This course is going to be focused on harbor maneuvers. An important thing about maneuver in the harbor. Many people think that maneuvering a boat is something similar to maneuvering a car. So you practice, you practice, you practice, finally you do it well. Nevertheless, it's very, very different. And I would say that for maneuvering a boat in a harbor is much more important the theory than the actual practice, which is, yes, important, but without a strong background in the theory is worthless. Why is so important this theoretical background in case of boats? Because the different situations that you can meet, you can encounter are so many, that is impossible to practice with all of them. You have to take into account the kind of propeller, we will see it. If it is, if it turns clockwise or counterclockwise, which means dexter gyre or levo gyre, technical term. You have to take into account the wind. How is blowing the wind with respect to the dock, to the mooring? You have to take into account the way you are going to dock. You have to take into account the current. And all these variables can be in all a quantity of different directions. So it's very important to know the basic concepts, which are few actually, but it's important to understand them correctly and deeply. A boat is affected by internal factors and external factors. The most important ones are, without any doubts, the wind and the propeller. That whenever a propeller rotates, not only pushes the boat forward, it has also a side effect that pushes the back of the boat, the stern, in this direction or in this direction. In this case, when rotates clockwise, the direction of the stern of this part of the boat will be this. And this is the rotation backward. So you have this stream of water that going forward inside the blackboard is hitting this side of the boat. The part of the boat underwater is hit by this flow in this side, and you have nothing in this other side. This has been verified experimentally, and this is the cause of this effect. It's just this stream of water that is hitting the side of the boat. And imagine that you have to go in this direction. You cannot immediately turn to the right, because what would happen is that your stern would hit this boat and you wouldn't be able to get out. So first of all, you have to be sure to stay clear of this boat until already here you have space in order to have your stern going left. With only one propeller, one engine, and the propeller not directionable, okay? You can even with this boat, turn the boat on itself. It's a well-known maneuver, and I will explain how to do it. Always, doesn't matter if you are in a sailing boat, because anyway, in a harbor, you will use the sailing boat without sails, with the engine, mostly. You have to look for the wind. What are the effects of the wind on a boat? First of all, I ask a question. What happens to a boat if it is stopped in the water, it's not moving, and the wind is blowing? The boat will orient itself. Imagine that here is the wind coming like this. The boat will orient itself with the bow to the wind like this, or will be like this, the orientation, more or less 90 degrees with respect to the wind. Which option you would choose of what happens? All my students get always wrong this answer at the beginning, the boat orient itself 90 degrees to the wind, always. Let's see how to get out of the mooring after you have moored. How can you get out from here? You cannot just put the throttle forward and all the wheel left so that the rudder is like this, because you would push the stern against this wall. The only possibility is to go backward. So what happens if you have wind? Here we have the dock, the mooring, as before. And let's imagine that you have a wind towards the docking place. You have to install a bow spring. A bow spring is a line that goes backward, but from the bow, like this. Now, you put all the wheel towards the dock. So the rudder is like this, you see? And you push the throttle forward slowly, and then more and more, with more and more power. So what is happening? You see, you have a torque like this that makes the boat rotate. And rotate, and rotate, and rotate even more. You are keeping the rudder like this. Of course, the bow is pushing against the dock, against the wall, this wall. So it's needed that a member of the crew is there with a fender and keeps the fender here to protect the bow. The one we are going to see now is just with moderate or no wind, okay? With a little bit of wind. You can also do a maneuver that is going not forward, but backward. So you have to install a stern spring like this. In this case, if you decompose the force, you have a force like this, a force like this, okay? And the propeller is pushing like this. So you have a couple of force here. Now only this couple of force, you have a torque like this. Of course, here you need a crew member with the fence, because this part will push against the dock, but little by little the boat is opening the bow like this because of this effect. Now let's see the case when we have the wind that is blowing outward. In this case, it's very simple undocking, but in this case, it's much more complicated to dock. Okay? You have to cast off the lines quite quickly and quite precisely. There is a way to keep the boat against the dock with just one line, the beam line, and then you give power forward with the rudder straight. This line will get into tension. And the force that is acting here against the boat is a force that is pushing you and keeping you against the dock. So just maintaining some power forward with the throttle, you are able to keep only with this line the boat against the dock all the time to bring to ground all the other line. And so by analyzing what we have already analyzed, you would be able to solve all the other cases. This is all for what is related to docking with the beam, which is the most simple kind of docking. Then we have more complicated cases, docking with the stern. We have to arrive and enter like this here. The problem, the major problem that generally arises is when you have a lateral wind. And this wind is going to make your bow falling leeward like this. And a situation quite complicated can be created with a lot of work, a lot of mess. And there is such a simple solution for this situation that you cannot even imagine. Let's see it and memorize it and try to apply it. It's extremely simple and eliminates a lot of headaches with this maneuver. So you have the wind that is blowing like this. First of all, you pass the windward line here. You just giving the right power, you can maintain the boat like this all the time needed to fix all the rest of lines. If you are alone, would be better to set the other line so that you can leave the power and go there to do the rest of the job. Why? But what about getting to the dock? The maneuvers have to be done against the wind. So it's better you enter from this side with the back and not from this position. You have to go with maneuvering against the wind. I suggest that you take all the space possible, especially if you don't have sufficient confidence with the maneuver. Go farther away. The more, the better. To go farther enough and to take into account that when you get back with the engine, you have the propeller effect. And for the boat we are considering, the propeller effect will push the stern in this way. So it's better that you keep anyway some angle like this angle, because in the initial phase, the effect will be to move the boat a little bit also when you go backward. Then, according to the boat that starts moving backward, the rudder will start being more and more effective. Starts a flow of water around the rudder. And in this phase, the rudder starts responding. So you turn like this, the boat goes like this. You turn the rudder like this, the boat goes like this. Then, when you arrive with the axle of this boat, with your stern, you start putting all the rudder to go inside. You have another kind of mooring that is entering with the bow. Make sure that you always do this maneuver with the wind, possibly with the wind against, like this, also like this. These maneuvers is much easier. I think that we have seen all the main concepts we have to take into account when maneuvering. One that we didn't see is the tide. When you have a tide like this coming from there, and the wind coming from here, for example, and you want to go to a buoy with your boat, you have to take into account only the tide, even if this wind is very strong. So whatever maneuver have to complete has to be done with the tide against the bow. But no, remember, the tide against, no matter how strong is the wind. Okay, thank you everybody. Hope to be here for other interesting courses.